Hey, what's up everyone? In this video, we're going to be talking about what's the optimal strategy for applying to jobs online. Or put in another way, now that we have the power of the internet, how could we use that to make our job search process going from I'm a designer and I have some portfolio and case studies to how do I get an internship or job purely applying online. Today, we're going to be applying a little bit of design thinking to this process, and I'm going to be breaking it down for you on how you can approach this. So let's get into it. Now, the first thing, I'm sure a lot of you here, you don't want to just hear me say, go to LinkedIn, go to AngelList and apply for the job, right? That's kind of like the bare minimum. Of course, we go to these job listing sites and we find opportunities. But the overall framework that we're going to be talking about today, you can use this to find any types of opportunities, right? So specifically, let's just say you can use this to find internships. You can use this to find full-time roles. You can also use this to find freelance projects, right? Now it might be like a consulting project, part-time, something like that. But overall, the same framework should help you. And the first place that I would like to start, right, is you need to think about the funnel. As a designer, I'm sure you kind of know about the concept of a funnel, but overall, you need to really understand the concept of a funnel and how it applies to looking for a job online, which is if you have applied for 3 jobs, right? 3 LinkedIn jobs or AngelList, you found these opportunities and you applied to them. Now, the thing to understand is if you are thinking that I'm going to apply to one job and I'm going to just kind of convert this and just get it. So one job, applied, boom, one shot, done, right? This assumes you have 100% hit rate. But in reality, the job application process is much like a funnel, which is there is a top of the funnel, which is here is where you find opportunities, you discover them. The top of the funnel can be inbound, which is you receiving messages. We'll talk about that in a sec. How do you flip this whole thing around? But typically what it looks like is outbound, you applying to opportunities, right? Now, since this is a funnel, the thing to understand is at every stage, there is some drop off that occurs, right? So let's say you are on LinkedIn and you saw that this job, it has 120 applicants. Now, for it to have 120 applicants, what that means is on the hiring manager side, right? Whether it's the design head or HR, they have a similar funnel, which is what they have done is they have actually posted this job on LinkedIn. Maybe they've talked about it on Twitter. I suck at drawing the Twitter logo. Maybe they've actually posted it on AngelList and a bunch of other job listing sites. Now, this creates their funnel. Candidates apply and they might receive, 120 applications, but typically a lot of these folks are not actually designers. Like I can tell you from personal experience, when we would try to hire designers for the design teams at startups I've worked at, we would have a lot of people who are mechanical engineers who kind of have some, let's just say, design experience in a very loose sense who would just apply for this, right? So there's a lot of people who just take that approach of just spamming any available job. And honestly, that's not what I want for you, right? Today, I want to give you a much deeper strategy. But in general, this funnel exists for you as well as for the company that's hiring, right? Even if they have 120 applications, they might filter down based on the links, based on the message or whatever to, okay, we have 80 viable candidates. These are viable candidates, right? This is just base level filtering, right? So this is, if you are a designer, you're just through this, right? So very, very base level. It's like galti se apply kar diya. You applied by mistake and that's the filtering that's out. But the rest of this filtering, these are typically the stages of the interview. So the first thing might be an interview call, right? So the first call, it's also called the phone screener, but that's what the funnel looks like on the interviewer's end. Let's come back to our funnel here. Your top of funnel is super important to you as a designer, right? This top of funnel, also known as tofu. I don't really call it tofu, but I think I should start calling it tofu, right? This is such a delicious name. Your tofu, right, is breaking it down inbound as well as outbound. What does that mean? It means when you post work online, let's talk about both of these categories. When you post work online, it gets seen by a lot of people but some percentage of people reach out to you. Now, when I say post work online, you might be thinking, what kind of work? Is all work eligible? It is, as long as there is some chance of people reaching out to you. So even if you are doing something like an Instagram post, right, or an Instagram story or a reel or something like that, if there is a chance that, out of the whatever, let's say 100 or 1,000 people that see this, some percentage, even if it's a very small percent, right? Even if it's only 0.01% of people who reply to you saying, hey, nice work, or I'm looking for a designer, or something around that, right? Overall, it's a good idea to remember that likes are not what you're aiming for. You're aiming for inbound messages, right? So keep that in mind. Whenever you are crafting the goal of any work that you're crafting to be published online, whether it's case studies, a case study would be a little bit more in-depth. It's like a 5 to 10 minute read. It's an article. It could be a case study video, right? So this could be maybe a storytelling format kind of video, right? If video editing is your skill, or if you have somebody who can help you with that, right? So you could do a case study video where you walk through your process. Now, all these are long form examples. Some short form examples would be a process reel where, it's what it sounds like. It's a process reel. You're showing your work. You're showing, it might sound weird. It's like, why do I have to take this photo off, my desk and I'm working at this desk time lapse or whatever? But that's a part of the process reel. What you're overall showing is how you cook, right? Let him cook. You're showing how you cook. Keep in mind that the reason process reels are so effective in general, and I don't just mean reels as a format, right? When I say process, I mean in general process and behind the scenes. Now, this might come in any medium that you choose, right? So you might choose to make reels and videos out of this, or you might choose to write articles if that's what you're familiar with. You might also just choose to do threads. Maybe it's some balance overall of images that you're sharing, which is your actual work, and let's just say the process of how it gets done. So that all of this stuff, this is your work that you're putting out. And in general, the goal is not to get likes. Remember this, guys. We're not trying to become content creators. You get what I mean when I say that? The purpose is not to create content and create design content online, right? Some of you might be thinking, oh, do I have to post carousels on Instagram and, all this stuff? Like, should I be? Yeah, do it if you want to, kind of explore that content creator side of thing. But when it comes to being designers and using content as a way to get inbound messages, the goal is not likes. Even if you have few likes, but 2 really good people reached out to you, or that's a win, right? So the more of this work that you put out, right? Some of it might be big, like case studies. Some of it might be really small. It's just a screenshot. It's just a video. Some of it might be in between. But as you're putting all this out there, you are creating what I like to call touch points. The reason I call them touch points is this is where a random possible client first finds you. And all of these touch points, what are they really? They're a funnel for you, right? They're a funnel for this overall goal of the video, which is still job search. How do I do job searching? Now, of course, it might sound a little mechanical when I'm saying this, right? To be very honest, one of the reasons I actually post is not really marketing or to get clients. It's posting online for me has been a great way for me to even find new friends, right? It's been a great way for me to be introduced, right? People can share my work saying, hey, check out this person. They've done some good work. Now, just think about that for a sec. If you had no work, no URLs, no links to your work that can actually be shared by people, even if you're really good, your own friends, your own colleagues, your own, people who could be making referrals for you have nothing to share, right? They're like, I can say, badhiya banda hai, like hire this guy, but I have nothing to show. So my referral comes off as very weak. Right? The reason you create all this stuff is so that you can get referrals. The point I was also talking about is a happy side effect, right? Even if you are not really doing this for the whole clients thing, is that doing this, you discover other designers. Designers love to find other designers' work. So all this case studies, reels, you're not really doing this just for clients. You're doing it also for your peers. right? People will see this, and overall that's the impression that they have of you as a designer. Now, all of these touch points, these are your top of funnel. Now, what this means is, let's say somebody lands on one of these things that you've created. These are your touch points. People have now entered. Some people will, I'm sure you've done this, you opened a bunch of tabs but you just never got to it. So just putting it out, just seeing views or somebody saw this, that's usually not enough, right? You and I, we both understand that. What that means is, even if 100 people saw this here, let's say step 1 of the funnel where it's like read or consume what you've put out, only about 80 people will actually do that, right? Of course, I'm just giving you hypothetical numbers, but the understanding here is that at every step of this imaginary funnel that we're thinking about, there's a drop off that occurs. So what you want to do ideally is you want to make this funnel as short as possible, right? So as soon as possible, you want to try to get the person on a call, because just given the structure, that the further down you go, the lesser it gets. I could have in fact drawn this out and actually show it tapering to the point where you get one offer or let's just say opportunity or whatever you're looking for. But the funnel here, finding opportunities online, you are putting your work out there, and that is inbound, right? That is inbound. Now, the next thing right here might be discovery call. So you actually, instead of just putting a CTA that says call to action that says I'm looking for a thing, or find me on LinkedIn or whatever, find you on LinkedIn, you're creating another step of the funnel where it's like they go on LinkedIn, but then they see it, they have a notification, they click it, and now they're distracted from your flow, right? So the flow breaks. There is more drop off that occurs. You don't want that happening, right? So what you want to do is right up front in your this thing, wherever possible, say book a discovery call with me. If you're interested in working together, let's explore. But what you're trying to do is get them scheduled on a calendar, where you use something like Calendly that literally just creates this calendar invite, puts a meeting URL there, just simplifies the whole thing for you. Because from the perspective of somebody who's hiring, I want to hire as soon as possible, right? Nobody enjoys the hiring process, not you and not the person hiring. What they want is the goal at the end, which is to have a good person they can talk to. So you're kind of making this easier for them. That's your discovery call, right? Now, after this, there might be, if you're interviewing, it's steps of an interview. But the main thing I want to kind of come back to, right? We talked a little bit about inbound, posting your work online, people see it, and then some of them reach out, right? Funnel. But another way you can kind of think about this is that there's also a network here, right? It's not just a funnel, which is its linear flow, but it's also a network over time. So for example, somebody might start following you on Twitter and now they see your posts, right? Or you join a community like 10K designers. So you're meeting other designers who are boosting your work, who are helping you with feedback, with connections, all of that stuff, right? So it's definitely not as simple as just a funnel, but these are tools to help you visualize the process, right? Make it a little easier for you to think about this whole journey. The other way is outbound, which is you actually apply. Now, the main thing to understand with this, right? Outbound, you could, for example, direct apply, this is something like a LinkedIn or an Angel List, right? These are two popular platforms. It can be any platform. In fact, you might also have a careers page that these websites have. But the disadvantage with something like this direct strategy is this thing right here, which is interviewers get a lot, or rather hiring managers sometimes tend to get a lot of applications. So you can just imagine, right, from a user's perspective here, to be overwhelmed by applications, what do? You kind of just start ignoring a few things, right? You might start scheduling calls, and you might not. You might schedule 10 calls out of this, and there's a chance that within those 10 calls, I find the right person, right? So you pause on everybody else. That's the main problem here. There are big pauses. There is a lot of, let's see if I can get this right. There is a lot of ghosting involved, right? There is long delays where you just do not get any reply from them. Now, of course, all of us, we hate that experience, bro. Who likes being ignored? But unfortunately, that's the truth about these kind of direct ways. Another way you can do a good outbound is via cold, please note here, cold yet personalized DM. Now, to be very honest, there's nothing to say that these three problems here of waiting of just being on pause and waiting, right? Just the hiring process is going on. So now I have to wait for it for going on, wait for my turn, and it might never come. Ghosting and all this stuff. It's likely to happen with this as well, right? That's the honest truth. Now, what a cold personalized DM would be is you, of course, cannot reach out to, let's say, Bill Gates and be like, hey, I saw your Microsoft opening or whatever. So it has to be the relevant person. And typically this might work for smaller companies, let's say startups, less likely to work when you have hundreds of people in a company. But then at the same time, I've seen enough examples of it working for small as well as medium to large size companies, right? It's just a matter of how relevant do you make that message. The simple way to think about this is all of us receive spam, right? All of us receive spam that is trying to take our time, attention, in some cases our money, hack into our account or whatever. But you want your thing to be so personalized that it could not be spam. Right now, of course, in the cohort, we show you a bunch of examples around this. So for any cohort members who are watching this, go back and check out some of the examples we've shared with you, right? To get more touch points around this process that we're sharing. But the main thing to understand now that I've showed you both of these is that your success with finding opportunities is actually not dependent so much on cold personalized DM direct. Like you might do both of these things but still not get an opportunity. Why does that happen? Let's come back to our friend the funnel. The main thing to note here, and I think I hinted upon this in the beginning of the video, if you apply for one company, you need 100% hit rate for it to work out. And now I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's rare. You have to be like the perfect person at the perfect timing with the perfect portfolio. Like applying to one company and getting in is a big deal. And if you have pulled that off at some point, know that there was a huge element of luck involved, right? Of course, you might have your skill, but this typically does not happen. Even for me right now with 10 years of experience, it's very rare that I can just reach out and get a job immediately like that, right? There is always a due process to be followed, and there is always a funnel that kind of kicks in. So what do you do in this case, right? You don't want to be waiting for that one person to reach out to you. In fact, it's not even ghosting, right? It might be ghosting at an advanced stage, right? What does an advanced ghost look like? You might have actually put your case study out. You might have actually gotten on a discovery call where you actually spoke to them, and they might have been really excited as well. Like, yeah, we want to work together. But now you're like, follow up one, right? Hey guys, just reaching out from our conversation last week. Are you ready? Follow up two. Now, one note here is always send follow-ups. You should always send follow-ups, right? Be polite, but be persistent. But let's be honest, right? The companies take time, and a lot of this can mean, they're so slow that it loses momentum. So they stop hiring for the role, or they find somebody else, or they just don't get back to you because they don't feel like they owe you a response. So what you should be doing is you should be maximizing and not just putting one company through the funnel. You should try to find a way to apply for 10 companies. You should try to find a way to apply to 100 companies. Now, you might think I'm exaggerating when I'm saying this, right? And I'll be very clear. In an ideal scenario, you do not need to apply to 100 companies, right? If you have a portfolio, you're probably going to get your job, maybe the 5th or 6th person you talk to, right? That's probably going to be your job offer. Not the 1st or 2nd, but the 5th or 6th. You have a good portfolio, right? With recession, with these changing elasticity of supply and demand, now that changes as well. But in general, the safe note is, yeah, there is a chance you need to apply to 100 places. But then logically speaking, what that likely means is there's probably an issue somewhere else down the line, right? Now, what I mean by that is you to officially be interviewing, right? Or to officially say that I tried, right? I tried to apply for jobs. You cannot apply for one. In fact, even when I say 10, you cannot just apply to the top 10 companies that everybody else is applying to. And to be honest, yes, you can. We all would love to work at, crazy companies that have amazing design teams, good design culture, mature design leaders, good number of customers, time in the market. They've been around for a long time. They have credible investors, all of that stuff, right? But keep in mind that even here, there is this funnel, right? There are more people applying to the most popular companies. So if you are early stage, your bet is to, yes, of course, apply for these popular companies, right? But that alone is probably not going to take you too far, right? Unfortunate truth, that's just how it is. To stand out from these hundreds of applications that these companies get, you need to have standout work, right? If you want to really stand out, you need to have good, excellent work. And to be very honest, this is very hard as a designer starting out. How do you differentiate? It's very difficult, right? I'll leave that up to you though. You're a designer. Know that every problem is solvable. Every problem has a solution. And even if the solution seems far away, you should have the thinking to break down that path and think in steps, right? That's one of the core things around problem solving as a designer that you need to know. But coming back here, my suggestion, if you are looking for opportunities online, is number one, right? To wrap up some of this and give you my final message around this. My recommendation, number one, understand that the more you try, the more your chances go up. Applying to one company, two companies, your chances are much lower. Applying to 5 companies, 10, 15 companies, your chances are higher. If you are applying to a lot of companies or fewer companies, also keep in mind the types of companies you're applying to. In an ideal scenario, we all want to work for FANG or whatever the Indian equivalent of FANG is. But you have to be competitive, right? You have to sometimes start at a lower position. You have to maybe start at a company that does not have so much competition, or you have to do something to stand out. Now, the advantage with something like this, understanding this overall model, is that the process is pretty much the same for whatever type of role. So one thing that you will definitely notice happens is you might get some inbound, or you might, convert some of these, but then it's not a full-time job that they offer you. It's more of a project, right? Which basically makes it freelance. They say, there's a project I want to work on. I'm not ready to hire a full-time designer, which is 12 months in a year I need design work, but there's a project that I need, right? Overall, the process looks pretty similar. You can increase your chances of receiving inbound projects, and honestly, that is the sweet spot, right? We're sitting and work is coming to us because of our reputation and because of the past work we've done, past clients, past referral. That is the sweet spot, right? So you're increasing your chances of this happening by posting work, by getting people to take an action on this work, which is book a discovery call, right? You're shortening the funnel. What you're also doing is you're understanding that this top of funnel, which is your work, that's a network that you have to understand, right? When you were in college, school, there was a certain network involved. It's you, your classmates, you have section mates, you have people who are across years, you have people in different branches, things like that. When you are a designer, there's also similar network, right? There's people who work at certain companies. There's people who within your network, maybe your classmates who are learning design. There might be people you met through the 10K designers community that are working. Keep this network in mind. This network rewards you, right? This network helps boost your work. And when the going gets tough, like trough of sorrow, tough, it's this network usually that keeps you going. It's these personal connections with people that keep you going, right? So this whole top of funnel thing, it's not really to just get conversions, right? It's also to build that support network, build that network of, bro, I have a designer I can WhatsApp right now. I have a friend I can WhatsApp right now. If I feel stuck, or I can send them a Discord message, right? Having that really gives you confidence that, hey, this will be okay in the darkest moments. But coming back here, post your work online. Your goal is not to get likes, although it's nice to get likes. It's nice to get followers, and followers leads to more people seeing it, which overall, it's a good thing. But overall, your goal is to get inbound messages and convert to discovery calls, right? That's the streamlined flow here. Keep in mind that the more you post, the more your chances go up. And overall, what we're doing is we're thinking from a very probabilistic lens. It's not about I apply for a job and I get it. It's like, how do I increase my chances at every level, right? Very probabilistic thinking. And if you are a designer, honestly, being able to figure this out is a big design problem. And if you can approach it as that, make this a fun design problem that you are solving, you'll have a much better time through it, right? Outside of that, if you are doing the cold DM, if you are doing the outbound, yes, I know inbound is ideal. We would love if clients just message us, right? Networks definitely help because they usually have directories as well. So to give you an example, the 10K Designers website lists alumni and it lists case studies. So a lot of recruiters, they actually go through these directories and use it to reach out. So that's how a lot of people at 10K Designers get inbound messages, even if they might not have a lot of work out, right? But you need to have some work out because people are not going to send you an inbound just by looking at your name. You need to have some work that they can look at based on which they are reaching out to you. Inbound is the ideal, but if you want to balance that out, right? That's probably the ideal situation, which is, yes, inbound is great, but it takes time to get there. It takes a slow, constant effort. So in the meanwhile, I'm going to balance it out with some outbound work. Keep in mind that you can use your case studies and all this work that you're producing and you're putting out. You can use these in your cold DMs. So send a message saying, hey, here's a recent project that I put out, right? It increases the chances that they look at you as a real person and not spam, right? Overall, that's kind of the goal here. They kind of see you as a real person who actually reached out to them individually and not like one in a list of 100,000 people. And when you're interviewing, keep in mind this whole funnel thing applies as well, right? Which is if you really need a job very immediate, right? Like within the next 2-3 months, then the fastest way, and this is uncomfortable, but the fastest way is actually to figure out, how do I apply for not just one company? How do I apply for 10 companies? Now, you might apply to the 10 most popular companies, and that's okay. But then you now need to kind of balance it out with companies where it might not be your top pick, but they have a good enough team, they have a good enough product. And the overall long-term view on this is that starting out, things are really hard because you're kind of starting from zero. But your first opportunity makes it easier for you to get your second opportunity. And eventually, as you keep going down this route, you will collect a bunch of work, right? And what I mean by that is you collect these experiences, right? That you're kind of going through this game. Think of this as a game, because that can make, thinking about these, it can make it simpler for some people, right? This game, you're collecting these rewards. You are also collecting these references, right? So you get references from your managers, from the people you work with, from the people you meet through networks like 10K designers. You're also getting brand names on your resume, right? So you might, like, to be very honest, that is the kind of the default path that most designers end up on, which is, hey, I have at this point worked for a company that most people have heard of. That makes it much easier for me to stand out. Now, of course, the same designers, along this path, you still have to make, new portfolios, new case studies. You have to still go through the processes wherever you might have to, but it gets easier, right? So a lot of this is a game of leverage, which is when you're starting out, the leverage that you have is you have time and you have the eagerness to actually go for it, right? So you kind of have the hustle. You're like, fuck, I don't have anything right now. I want to prove myself, right? That's hustle. That is you saying, oh my God, I'm going to do what it takes, even if it's uncomfortable for me. But over time, your leverage can become your network, brand names in your resume, but also referrals. And this makes it easier over time. Also, the main thing is also your skill leverage goes up, right? Like you can, with your skills, create killer standout work that helps you get noticed, that in fact has a line of clients, that creates a line of clients waiting to work with you. Overall, as your inbound goes up, what also happens is you can't work with every single person who reaches out to you, right? At that point, you can choose to be picky. You can choose to say, I'm not going to work with cheapo clients who don't want to pay me. At that point, you can start in your discovery calls actually rejecting clients, saying, hey, thank you, we had a great call, but however, this was not a great fit. I don't think we can do this, whatever. And amongst all of this, right, I'm also going to talk about this one last part, which is, you might be thinking, oh, this is so complicated, right? What do I say? What's the right thing to say? Kuch galat na bol do, right? What if I say something wrong in my discovery call, or you have to send them a proposal and they ask for a proposal and invoice? I don't know what a proposal or invoice is. Or, it's like case study. Like I'm not good at writing, right? What do I do, right? You might be thinking all of these things. Or you're like, I want to make a video, but I don't know how to do it. I just don't know. Guys, use ChatGPT, use AI tools, right? Most people, if they only spent the energy and mental effort that they think about, will AI take away my job? If they spend all that energy at actually using this to make themselves better and stand out, they'd have way better results. So what I mean by this is, if you're ever stuck and you're like, hey, shit, I need to write a proposal message, or I need to write a cold DM, or I need to, I'm stuck somewhere. So like, you could literally, through ChatGPT, say, this is my scenario and this is what I want to do, right? Treat ChatGPT as a problem solver. You, as a designer, you are a problem solver too. But here's a partner who can also solve problems. So if ever you have any lochas with your clients, so you're like, oh, fuck, what do I do in this scenario? It's new to me. Ideally, you have a network of people you can reach out to, that you can DM saying, hey, bro, what do I do? And they tell you, yeah, based on my experience, this is what you should do. But without that, good news is you can still do that using ChatGPT. Of course, not a real person and not always good, but it'll work. So with that, I hope you got a much better understanding of the entire framework on how to find opportunities online. I hope you got a good understanding of what this game is. And just like any game, it takes time. You, in your first walkthrough, will get belted by all the NPCs, all the bosses, and, just understanding the controls. Yeah, that's normal, guys. But over time, you understand how the game is played. You understand what the map is. You understand who the characters are. You understand how do you level up. You also understand the meta, which is what's the overall strategy that I should be playing. But sometimes not realizing that all of this is a game can make you really stressed, right? So the game way of thinking about it also helps, with your mental health sometimes, with your overall, bro, I should not take this so seriously. It's a game, right? And I should not be worried about my problems so much because, hey, it's a game. I tried and it did not work. Now, what is the problem? Am I not applying to enough places? Are my case studies not good? Can I do more, right? Be honest with yourself, because in the end, you're playing to win. You are playing to win. Thanks, guys. Wishing you tons of success. If you're interested in a cohort, by the way, check our link out. For 2023, cohort 7 applications open in a couple of weeks as of when this video was posted. So check the link out and just check out our Twitter or website for the latest updates on application dates, enrollment process, and so on. See you.